Food. Food. Yummy. Yummy.
Hello, I'm Andy. This is Menu from Mars. Again. Today I'm going to do a homebrew show. Now, before all you brewmasters send me hate mail, because there are about as many different ways to do this as there are ingredients. It's funny because when you take something that's as simple as malt, barley, and water, there are about a billion different ways that you can do it. So I'm going to show you my way, which is a simple way, which is almost the kit way of doing it. Although I pick my stuff up separately, this is along the lines of what's called a light lager. Takes a little longer, has to be a little cooler. The yeast ferments on the bottom instead of the top. So this is something called a lucky lager that I make just a little differently than it is supposed to be made, of course. But I did get it from a gentleman called Don Merrill. The original recipe is his, from an agway up in Littleton, New Hampshire. So there's his plug. But I do change it a little bit because his recipe's changed a little, so I do it a little differently. What you're going to need for this: a pair of rubber gloves. This first phase is very uncomplicated. I've got a 7-gallon bucket. I have a funnel. I have the lid, a bubbler, a little thing to measure milliliters, and I'll tell you why later. Cracked grains. This is a cup of corn sugar. We don't need this till much later. So distilled water. All you partiers that like Purple Passion know what this is. Everclear. I have 6 pounds of malt right here that is going to be heated on the stove, just because it's thick and it'll never all come out of there. So I got a little towel in the bottom of my pan, a la Alton Brown, and I put it right in, and then we can heat it on the stove. Got me a stock pot, and that's about it. You've got grain, malt, water. First things first though, just the parts that we need for this portion, we need to sterilize them, or at least sanitize them. So I'm going to put most of it into this. Then I'm going to fill this with water and put a little sanitizer in it. This is rainwater, believe it or not. Cool. Would help if you close the spout. Alright, then you got to take your little sanitizer pouch here, which I'm going to do with gloves because I don't want to screw around with sanitizer. I have to touch things later. I don't mean things, I mean the stuff that's going in here. So, here we go. It says that you have to do things. This goes to 2 gallons of water. I'm going to put it in about 4 or 5, and I'm going to rinse it. Even though it's a no rinse, I'm going to rinse it, and then I'm going to spray everything down with Everclear and let it dry. So kind of a sanitation and a sterilization. But we'll drop this in here, and we need to give it about 30 minutes. So while that's happening, I'm going to start this. Put it on low, let it warm up, and when we come back I will have rinsed all of this and be ready to make beer. So
Vote Richard Dick Frothy for president.
'Cause that other guy is Mormon. And we just know that's a cult.
Well, I'm Dick Frothy, and I approve this message.
Let's try this again. Because I left a whole bunch of stuff out. However, here's my stuff. In here, I've already taken my strainer out. You're gonna need a strainer, one of these brew buckets, a stock pot, my funnel, a turkey baster, a towel for the pan, which I already showed you the pan, and some ice. You're also going to need a pound of cracked grains is what I use for this one. 3 ounces of hops, which, hold on one quick second. I actually have 6 ounces of hops in here. I have whole leaf, a couple of them, my yeast, and I have pellets. I actually use the pellets an awful lot. Don't ask me why. I think it's just because they're available. But I do have whole leaf and more pellets. I'm not going to use these today. I'm going to use these when I make Pilsner, which is another kind of lager. Or at least you use the same yeast for it. The grain alcohol is to sanitize things a second time. This is just how I do it. You don't have to do it. I also dilute this down to about 70% from about 95%. And put it in my bubbler to prevent anything from going back. Some people use vodka, some people use straight water. It's a preference. Do whatever you want. But this has been sitting for quite a while now. You don't have to. It says to do it for a minute or two. I let it sit a lot longer. All my stuff is still in here. I'm gonna drain it. So while that's draining, I'm going to situate a couple of things and I'll be right back. Now that I've sanitized everything, I take an extra step. You don't have to. I don't like to wait for things to dry. I'm an impatient, you know what. This is pure grain alcohol in here. And I just kind of spray everything down with it and then let it air dry. I've already done the counter with this, I've done my hands with this, and I'm still using gloves. Because I don't want all the brewmasters to call in and say, "Hey, what are you doing? You're using your bad hands." But I just doused everything with the grain alcohol. And the alcohol evaporates the ethanol so fast. Oh, I'm breathing it in. Woo! This is some good stuff. But this evaporates so quick, it's only going to take a few minutes for this stuff to air dry. And I'll be back as soon as it's ready. Like I said, I've started my water. 3 gallons in the stock pot. I actually don't think I've said that yet. And I'm bringing it up to 160, and it's still going to be a couple of minutes. So while this dries, I will wait for the water to boil, maybe make some tea. Woo! Like I said, I have some water on the stove in a stock pot, 3 gallons approximately. And I've got the thermometer from my turkey fryer in there, sanitized, even though it doesn't need to be. And I've brought it up to 160 degrees now. So that's about steeping temperature. And we are now going to take our 1 pound of cracked grains, light grains, because I like my lager light. I actually don't drink a whole lot of beer. And when I started doing this, I had gone over to England. And that was the first time that I had ever tried bitter or any of the other beers they have over there. And I actually liked them a lot more and didn't get hung over like I do here. So when I came home, I was on a mission, this was about 10 years ago, to get the recipe for these and try to make them myself if I couldn't find them here. Of course I couldn't find them, so I started making my own beer, and I found that it didn't make me hungover. However, I still don't drink a lot of beer. I might drink 4 or 5 of these pints because I'm going to put them in pint bottles, but not a whole lot more than that. I use it almost primarily for cooking. I put it in my water tray when I'm cooking in the smoker. It's an ingredient in my chili, my barbecue sauce, everything. So, although if I do have people over that want to drink, at least I have beer that I know there are no chemicals in, there are no preservatives. It's just stuff that I made here, and it's better. You get one of these little socks when you buy a kit, or you can buy it right from the people that you buy your brewing supplies from. I usually cut mine in half, and then I tie a knot in the bottom of one and use it. This is the bottom half to one. This is where you want your grains to go. So you put them all right in here, and then tie yourself a knot. And then these, at 160, go right in to your water, and then we set the timer for 30 minutes. Still have the malt warming on the stove here. I'll take a minute here to tell you about the hops I'm going to use. I have Styrian Goldings, which will be the first one I put in. Then I'm going to put in an ounce of the Millennium hops. And then I'm going to finish with the Kent Golding from the UK. And these will all be done 15 minutes apart. Again, I don't want any hate mail from all of you people that have been brewing for years and do a lot more complicated things. Sometimes I add molasses or honey to the very end, just before I set it off to ferment, which is what everybody calls this, by the way, a fermenter. I'm not going to do that this time because I need these in a couple weeks, 3 weeks. I need to be able to use this for cooking. When you put molasses or you put honey in your beer, it makes it taste great, but it adds just weeks to the fermenting process. So in my experience, I found that. Hold the hate mail. I know I keep saying that, but I've watched people lambaste Alton Brown and some other people for the way that they brew. I do it a little differently. I'll bring the camera over, let you see this. And we've got 30 minutes to kill, so maybe I'll go kill a hooker. Okay, here we are. You'll see my turkey thermometer is at a little above 160. I've turned the temperature down to medium high, medium low, and there we are, steeping away. Is my grains. And that's basically where they'll sit until they're ready to go. Yay! And here is my malt, still warming. Woo! Still warming. Yay! 6 pounds. Woo! 30 minutes has gone by. We have our grains steeping, 160 degrees, 30 minutes. Ooh, our malt is nice and warm. I'm gonna go ahead and remove the grains now. And I'm not gonna need that anymore. Okay, this is where my funnel comes in. I actually use it only to strain my grains. My grain. All right. I put it in the funnel, and I'm gonna squeeze mine a little too. Do you want to squeeze it? Do you want to squeeze yours while I squeeze mine? I just want to make sure I get everything out. Oh, I wish you could smell this. It smells excellent. All right, now that that is all out, and I feel like I've gotten everything out of it, put that in the sink, and we are ready to add our malt. That's been warming for quite a while, probably about 45 minutes. The bottom of the container is all nuffed up. Okay, my grain bottle was rock hard at the top, so there was no way I was going to pour it out. So I didn't get to show you my turkey baster technique, where I take the water from here, dump it in the container, slosh it around and dump it in. So now you know. I had to cut a hole in the bottom of it and drain it into a bowl. So here we go. Into the beer with you. And get that. Woo! Good stuff. Drop that in the sink. I'm going to give this a little stir here. Make sure none of this burns to the bottom, because I'm about to turn the heat all the way up. I want to bring this to a boil. And then it's going to boil for 30 minutes after I do that. So I just want to make sure it's, whoops, all off the bottom. It smells excellent. So we'll bring this to a boil and then I'll come back. We have ourselves a boil going here. So I'm going to start the timer for 30 minutes again. And we're just going to let this boil for 30 minutes. And the smell in the house is fantastic. Grainy, bready. We're just going to let this go and go and go. In about a half an hour, we're going to add our hops to it. But there's nothing else to it other than boiling a couple of things together. Steeping, boiling. We're making starches and sugars for the yeast to eat. And you know, I don't know why more people don't make their own beer. It's quick, it's easy. It's not quick really. It takes about 2 hours to get everything going, and you need to sanitize everything so that you don't kill yourself. But this smells good. So 30 minutes on this, and we'll be back to start hopping. Been a half hour. All right. I am actually going to switch it up a little bit. I am going to do my Millennium hops first. So, oh, before I forget, that sock that we used for the grains, the cracked grains, you can empty that out and wash it either in the machine, in the sink, or a dishwasher, and you can reuse that if you want to. I don't all the time, but you can. I pulled that one because I'm starting to make beer without kits. And if you're going to make them without kits, you're going to need some of those socks. Okay. Hops. Boiling. Ooh, it's going to be hot. You just pour them in and set your timer for 15 minutes. Ooh, that even changes the way it looks as it boils. I'll let you take a look. These are the hops over here, and that's my rolling boil. Changes the way it smells too. So we're gonna leave that and be back in 15 minutes to hop some more. Here is our second round of hops. I'm just gonna dump that in and let it go for another 15 minutes. Woo! Our last batch of hops. Are you excited? I'm excited. These are the Kent Goldings. These are the last ones I want to finish with. I'm not big on hoppy beer, so I tend not to dry hop, which is something you would do at the end of your boil cycle. I'm not going to do that. Not to mention, I'm using pellets this time around instead of the whole leaf. But, woo! There we go. That's the last batch. We're going to give this 15 minutes, and then we're going to kill the heat and try to cool this down. You ready? it's done. Turn off the heat. And now we have to get this to 70 degrees, give or take 5, so that we don't kill our yeast. First things first, I have filled the sink with water, and I'll come get the camera so you can see it. I filled it with water so that I can attempt to cool this down a little faster. I used to just put it on the floor, dump it right into my bucket, and then put ice packs around it, but it took hours to cool down to where I needed it to. I don't have that kind of time. I want to play some Black Ops today, so we are going to cool this down as quick as we can, which means it goes in the sink. And then we'll start mixing the stuff for our bubbler. Okay, here's my sink. I've put some water in it and a little rainwater from outside, some water from the spigot, and I've put in some ice packs. It's made it nice and cold, and hopefully what it will do is it will help us cool this down quicker. There it is. We will let that sit for a little while, and then we're going to add ice and water to this when we put it into our fermenter. Okay, I've brought my wort down to about 135 degrees in the sink. I added a handful of ice cubes to it just to make sure it happened. This is my fermenter. I have 3 of these. This one you'll see has a number 1 on it. This is the one that I ferment in. They're all the same buckets, they all have the spigots, and there's a reason for that that we'll kind of get into as we go. So when you're disinfecting this, make sure that you open the spigot and let some of that bleachy, wonderful water run through this. Like I said, I used the no rinse stuff, but I got some of that in my eye once in here from the water and it burnt, so that tells me more bleach than I want in my beer. Sterilized, I'm going to put some gloves on and we are going to start pouring right into this. So I'll be back in a couple of minutes. Strainer, check. I'm actually going to spin that this way because I'm going to be pouring from this side. Wort, double check. Alright, and you just stop pouring it in. You'll notice I got it everywhere. That's why I had the towels on the floor. I didn't quite get it all, but there we go. The strainer is used simply because I use dry hops and it's a very fine thing. It's not, even if you were using the whole leaf hops, you want something to get that out of there. This works for me. I bought this particular strainer just for this. I don't use it for anything else. But I did sterilize it or sanitize it, and we are ready to get this baby up to 5 gallons. And now we have to bring this up here to our 5 gallon point. Because it's still a little warm, I'm going to start with some ice. Then we are going to just use water to get the rest of the way. Okay, we've got 5 gallons of water, or wort now. I'm going to mix this. There's still ice cubes in there. Make sure that this all gets mixed in together because we are going to take its temperature shortly. It's foamy, foamy goodness. It still says about 82 degrees, but there's still some ice in there, so I'm going to let that melt. And while that happens, and while it cools, we will mix the stuff for our bubbler because we are at the end, folks. Here we are. we've done everything else that we need to do. We're waiting for our wort to get down to the temperature we need. What I've done here is I've taken 21 milliliters of Everclear. This is 95% alcohol by volume and 190 proof. This is like the moonshine they make up the road. So you can't buy this stuff in New Hampshire. I actually have to buy it from another state and have it shipped in. What we're going to try to do here is bring this down to 70% alcohol, and that gets done by adding distilled water. Now if I have 21 milliliters of, and that's way more water than I need, the alcohol, in order to bring that from 95 down to 70, I'm going to need 9 milliliters of distilled water. So this is just a little syringe that we used to use to give our son medicine, but it works perfect for stuff like this. I'm going to need 9 milliliters, so that's a completely full one and an almost completely full one, and there you have it. That is 30 milliliters brought down to 70 milliliters, rather 70 proof, 70% alcohol, and that's going to go in our bubbler when we're ready for it. I'm going to keep it covered just so it doesn't evaporate. I'm going to go take the temperature of my wort, and we'll go from there. Okay, you little rapscallions, here we are. I've brought this down to between 65 and 70 degrees. Where I keep my beer, or lager as it ferments, it doesn't get any warmer than 65 degrees. It really doesn't get any colder than 62. I know, before you email and post that these are wrong temperatures. Some people like to bring it down to 55 degrees or 50 degrees before they pitch their yeast. I figure, why bother doing that? Where I'm putting it, it's only going to get around 65 degrees, so I don't need to bring it down much further than that. Why bring it lower than it's going to be? When you get it where you want it, somewhere between 65 and 75 degrees, again, people will argue as to the correct temperature, because much like everything about making beer, when you combine 3 ingredients, such simple recipes cause quite a bit of disagreements as to the best way to do it. I like mine here. This is where I'm going to do mine. I'm going to pitch my yeast. Nah, I'm just kidding. I'm just going to sprinkle it on. All my little yeasties. Make sure the yeast is good. I just bought mine, so I know it's good. It doesn't expire for quite a few months. Some people don't do this either. I like to give mine a little stir. Make sure I get it all underneath the foam that's in there. Because this is not a top fermenting yeast. This is a bottom fermenting yeast, which means that if it sits on top of the foam, that's happening, which means that my grains and my malt were done correctly, it's not going to do us any good. So here we go. My beer is ready to ferment. So that being said, we go back to this wonderful thing. Take this and put it on.
Vote Richard Dick Frothy for president.
Because like we've explained to you, it's against God's will for women to be president. And I'm not a woman.
Well, I'm Dick Frothy, and I approve this message.
Good morning, boys and girls. Live from the aftermath of Hurricane Irene. We have no electricity. That humming you hear in the background is more than likely my generator It's a whole house generator that allows me to continue to shoot even though we have no power. Still, after a rainstorm. Anyway, my beer, she's ready to go. She's bubbling only every 2 minutes or so. I have to sanitize my bucket and all of my bottling utensils. I have sanitized my bottles and my caps and sterilized them really with really hot water in the dishwasher. I got to put my shirt on so you know it's the same episode. I have to put my bottles from here into the boxes, and there's a lot to do, so I'm going to get to it. And I'll just bring you in and out as needed. I'm filling my bucket with water so that I can add the detergent here to make sure that everything's sterile or sanitized. I'm going to put my bottles in the boxes, and I was going to use rainwater for this because we've had a little bit of rain over the past few days, but it's full of bugs and that's not sanitary. So as soon as this is done filling up, I'll add the detergent to it, the sanitizer. The only things I have in here right now is the tube for filling and then this tube for filling. So I'm not going to fill this all the way, but what I am going to do is slosh it around a little bit. It says it only needs to be in contact with things for about a minute. I'm going to trust them on this one. And then it says I don't have to rinse. I'm not going to trust them on that one. So a little bit of chlorine detergent and I'll be back when it's sanitized. Woo-hoo-hoo. Here I are, moving these bottles to the boxes. When you do it, make sure you don't touch the top of the bottle. You just ran these through the dishwasher to sanitize them, and it probably wouldn't be a good idea to touch the top and contaminate them. Now, should I be wearing gloves? Yes. Am I going to? Absolutely not. Listen, this is how I do it. I recommend you wear gloves. Also, I don't like bleach and detergent in my beer. They say this is a no-rinse detergent that I use to sanitize things. I'm going to put the bottles and the caps through the dishwasher, and I'm going to rinse my bucket as soon as it's done sanitizing. That's just me. You don't have to. However, you should wear gloves while you do this. You don't want to contaminate the opening. Bottles have been boxed. It is time to sanitize the spigot and the rest of it. So I'm going to take this out and I am going to connect it to the spigot, and we're going to sanitize them both at once, provided I can get it in the hole, just by opening it up and letting the water pour out of it. That's all you need to do. So bottles are ready. I'm going to empty this. When this is empty, we'll dry it out, rinse it out, put the primer sugar in it, and we're off to the races. So I'll be back when it's done coming out. Okay, I lied. I'm going to wear gloves this one time for you. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to put the primer sugar. It says it's a cup, but according to my scale, it's 5.5 ounces, which does not equal a cup. But we are going to go ahead and put this in this bucket. We've cut it open. I'm just going to dump it into the bottom of the bucket. Now, the last time I did this, my beer was overcarbonated. You would open it up and there would be a volcano of suds that came out. However, I'm going to follow the instructions again, and I'm just going to put the sugar in. Now, this is why I dry the bottom of the bucket so that the sugar doesn't stick to it. I'm going to show you a couple things over here, and we're going to empty this into this. Now, I don't know if you can see this, but right here we have a dark line around the bottom. And what that is the yeast and all of our sediment. It comes right up to here, just underneath the spigot. And then up here, I don't know if you can see, but we have a dark line here just above the 5 gallon mark. So when we empty this, This should come down to just under 5 gallons, and we should leave all this yucky stuff in the bucket. I've taken my hose and I've sanitized it, and now I'm just going to put this end in the bucket. I've also rinsed it, and I am going to attempt to put this end on here. There we go. Now I can turn it, and I'm going to empty it into here, but I'm going to bring the camera over so you can see. Hi! Ready to go. Just open it up, and hopefully our beer will spill into there. Here's something I almost forgot to tell you. The bubbler. You got to pull it out of the top or the beer won't empty. Into the sink. Into the sink. Needs the hole up here for air so that it can go down into there. And we're just going to wait for it to fill up now. And then we're going to take that and put it into bottles, and everything's going to be excellent. Yeah, beer! Hooray! Okay. You little beer monkeys. We're about done emptying this container into this container that has the sugar, and we are just under the 5 gallon mark. So that tells me 640 ounces of wonderful golden nectar. It says 29 20-ounce bottles. They're actually 22-ounce bottles. They're imperial pints. However, you got to leave a little space in the top of them, so it ends up being about 20. That's about 29 bottles. I keep enough bottles on hand to do 2 batches of beer. So it's time to bottle. We'll be back in a second. Here is our leftover. Let's not drop the camera. All right. Nice little ring up here. Look at all that sludge down in the bottom. That's good stuff, man. That's our yeast. Our yeast is done. But this is the stuff you didn't want in your beer. And now we don't have it in our beer. We have beer in our beer. And that's it. So let's get to bottling. Hooray! We've got our beer in container 2. And now all we need to do is bottle it. Yummy! This smells so good, as opposed to when you make it, it does not smell so good. So we're gonna reattach our hose here. Except the difference is, this time, oh, here it is. We're going to attach this end to our bottling rod. I don't know what the proper name for it is. But it's got a little plunger here. When you depress it, it doesn't need Xanax. It sprays all its goodness into your bottle. So let's turn this, and let's get ready to bottle. Woo! As you can see here, I have all of my bottles facing up. These 5 are not sanitized, so I've turned them down. I have 29 bottles here. I don't think we'll use that many, but we're better safe than sorry. Now, when you fill these with this little wand here, you turn on the spigot up here, and you just insert it into the bottle and push down. When the beer gets to the very top of the bottle, you lift up the rod. This stopper will automatically stop the beer flow, you hope. I've had times it didn't, and then you go to the next one, and you just keep going till they're all done, and that's it. So I am going to get a close-up of me sticking my rod in the hole and filling it with all of my fluid. And we'll be good to go. First couple of bottles. Here we go. Here it comes. Right when it gets to the top, you pull it out. And what that does is it creates just enough room for you to put your cap on and for this thing not to explode.
or be overfilled. A little bit of space for you to be able to pressurize and carbonate the beer. Here it comes. Woo, did it again. And that's it. Here's another little trick. As I fill it up and it gets to the top and I pull it out, if I decide there's not enough in there, if you just lean the thing, the little spigot end in here to the side so that it just slightly depresses against the side of the bottle, you can add just a little more to each bottle. And then you don't have to worry that you're leaving too much space in. It's just a little trick. I haven't heard anybody say it before, so I figured I'd mention it. I almost didn't, thinking that it was so simple everybody would know it, but as you come to the end, oh, I didn't quite get enough in there. Just lean it against the side and it'll very, very slowly fill to where you want it filled. Nice and easy.
All right, you little booze hounds. Here we go. Last step. Bottle, meat cap, sanitized in the dishwasher, capper. Now my son used to do this with me. A capped beer. Capped beer, yummy. And that's it. Your last step is just going through all of these and putting caps on them. That's it. I used to come out here and I said here in the kitchen and do this with my boy when he was younger. Now he can't stand the smell of beer, which isn't a bad thing. So I have to cap myself. Don't be sad. Don't cry for me, Argentina. Yay. Whoop. And that's it. I'll go through and cap the rest of these, then I'll take them and I'll stick them in a Rubbermaid container downstairs in the basement and let them sit for another couple of weeks. Now, you want to put these boxes here in a Rubbermaid containers, you little beer monkeys. Simply because if they start to pop, if they got too much sugar and they're too carbonated, you don't want it all over your floor. Or at least I don't. I have pergo flooring downstairs. So I used to use a kiddie pool, but that's damaged, so I threw it in the woods. And so now I just use a Rubbermaid container. I put the 3 of these in. I ended up getting 24, 25, 26 and a half bottles of beer out of this. But again, these are imperial pints. They're 22-ounce bottles. Good stuff, man. And that's a lot, considering. I don't understand why more people don't make their own beer at home. You know what went into it. No chemicals, no icky stuff. It's simple. It's actually cheaper than buying beer. It just takes a couple of hours on the front end and a couple of hours on the back end. Need a little bit of attention to detail so that you don't give your family salmonella or sour a batch, they call it. I use mine mostly for cooking, so it really doesn't matter. Don't write to me and get all upset because I said it doesn't matter. I'll drink 3 or 4 of these. Now you got to think of a name, because every time you make beer, you got to have a name for it. Like I said, I made my last batch during Rosh Hashanah, so I called it Hebrew. No emails, please. So this one was made during Hurricane Irene, so I'm thinking of calling the episode Much a Brew About Nothing, because it was a windstorm with a little bit of rain in this area. We're in New Hampshire, and we didn't get hit all that hard. And the power's been out for 2.5 days now. So I'm not sure, especially because we get much worse storms here. A lot worse. Sometimes just because it's spring. So, not sure if I'm going to call it Irene Brew, or Much a Brew About Nothing, or Hurricane Lager. but I'll call it something, and that's how I'll refer to it till it's gone. I'm gonna make a Pilsner, probably in a week. Other than that, I'm telling you, go out and buy the kit. Buy some bottles, enough to make 2 batches, probably 5 cases of the 20-ounce bottles. I would get 2 of the spigoted containers. It just makes it easier. The kit comes with 2, but one it doesn't have a spigot on it. It's just a bucket. I don't like that. So I went out and bought a second one. If you've got the right place, I believe that the price sticker I took off this was under 10 bucks. You go out and get your ingredients. Buy kits if you want. Kits are real easy to put together. Everything's already measured and metered for you. You follow a few simple steps. This beer is so much better than anything you're gonna buy in the store. It really is. I would put even the quirkiest kit up against any bottled beer in the world. Now, something to keep in mind. When you go to get your beer supplies, if your local store has kits pre-made and mass manufactured, that might not be the kit for you. Most of these homebrew stores, the guys that run them will put together kits of their own, and those are the ones you want. Don't buy the mass-produced ones if you can help it. Buy the kits. Don Merrill from Don Merrill's Agway in Littleton, New Hampshire. He was the one that showed me how to make this particular light lager, Lucky Lager, like I mentioned at the beginning of the show. He already measured everything out. I had to select certain things and crack the grains myself, which they have a machine for there. But I can call him up because it's his brew and say, hey, listen, I've lost the direction, which I did. Can you tell me how to do this one? And he'll run it through on the phone for you. Plus, they put better stuff in than the mass-produced kits. So if you find a homebrew store, just ask the guy behind the counter if he's made any kits. He'll say yes. He'll show you. He's probably got an ale, a lager, a bunch of different ones. Get them, try them. You won't regret it. And when you're done, you can get schnookered off a beer, man. Free beer. Free. You know, we don't want to spend tens of dollars on just crappy beer. Money's hard to come by. You know, the advertisers aren't knocking down my door, and I'm unemployed. So, beer. Beer. So, go out, get a kit. Get a brewing kit. Get a beer kit. Make your own. It's not that hard. You just need the malt, the 6 pounds of malt, the pound of grains, some sugar, and a few hops. It's not that difficult. Good water. Sanitize everything. Now, go get drunk, you little freaks. Beer! Clean up. I hate clean up. Clean up. Clean. I'm so scared.
Vote Richard Dick Frothy for president.
Unless you're a blah.
Well, I'm Dick Frothy, and I approve this message.
Again, I don't want to hear if my way of doing it differs from your way. If there is a major issue in how I'm doing something, feel free to email me and let me know, and I will change it the next time around. However, I don't want to get into little squibbles and little disagreements about how I do it versus how you do it. I'm just not in the mood. Just watch the damn episode and enjoy it for what the it is, and stop being such a little bitch.